So originally this session was going to have another participant from Infineon, but he got sick and lost his voice entirely. So Andreas is not going to be here. Victoria Ossadnik's a member of the managing board of E.ON. She's also a Microsoft veteran. And let me ask you, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but why did you want to move from software to energy?
First, I didn't move away from software because we need so much software to do energy right.
Good answer.
And this actually was the reason that software can change so much towards sustainability. And I thought building software for customers was cool at Microsoft, but applying it and to make a real change in Europe in sustainability was something which attracted me. So I never left software.
You didn't, and I think we'll hear a lot about that as we go forward. So, but you kind of have a passion for energy and climate and all that stuff. You really wanted to get into an industry where you could really feel a tangible impact on the world even more. Not that Microsoft doesn't have a lot of influence. We know a lot about that at this conference. Well, maybe you should just start out by telling us a little bit about what E.ON does, and when you look at this topic of the infrastructure for a digital society, and particularly a digital society that is becoming transformed by AI, what are the challenges?
Yeah, and I could spend the entire day, or it could be really fast. So I go for really fast. So E.ON is the biggest European utility with the biggest distribution grid. So what we have actually, three things we do. We operate distribution grids. We serve around 50 million customers as B2C customers, and we build sustainable energy solutions for industries and cities. So that's the three things we do. And actually, this gives us a possibility to be part of a really big transition, and in some parts we try to drive this transition. And I think Steffi mentioned in the beginning, yes, AI, the data centers for AI are consuming a lot of energy. And I was thinking, yep, this is one part of all the interesting challenges we have. And we have a really good combination of challenges from perspective of an industry. Because the one thing is we are greenifying Europe, which actually means electrifying Europe. This is a good and a bad problem because we need to grow the amount of energy we can transport in both directions, from decentralized energy generation and from usage in consumers for electric cars, electrification of industry. So the grid structure is changing completely, and in a lot of places we would need much more grid than we ever had before, where we need software and AI to somehow handle this. That's number one. Number two, the demand for energy is changing its structure. And one of the big changes of structure is data centers. So that's number two. And obviously, number three is all of this comes with a cost. And affordability of energy is core for us because we are an infrastructure provider, so we serve the communities. And we need to make sure that somehow the communities still can afford to be warm in winter and to switch on the light or load their mobile phones, which is not trivial if you look into the investments which are coming our way and which we are all undergoing.
Well, E.ON is a company that's gone through a lot of transformations, and you know, some of the transformations haven't happened yet in the United States, where our energy infrastructure is quite a bit more primitive, I think. And it's a real problem because of this electrification of society that the climate and energy transition demands. You said something as we were preparing, which you sort of hinted at just now, but you said you need digital because the system is burning. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think if you look back when energy systems, especially in Europe, were created, you had central power plants, really big central power plants, very close to energy sources like coal, and you had a really defined pattern of use in industry and in households. Now, we move away from big central power plants, and we are creating energy in places where we have sun or wind. Unfortunately, historically, these are not places where we had industry or where we had power plants, but it's somewhere. So actually, I have a power line which has been serving 5 households in a small remote village somewhere in northern Germany, and now I put like 50 wind engines there. Imagine what my power line is doing. Okay, it's not going to survive it. So this means we need to build these power lines. And we have a lot of congestion because now we have production in places where we don't have lines. This means actually our distribution grid, and it's saying distribution grid, it's no distribution grid anymore, but it's a combination of collection and distribution grid. And this goes from very small on top of homes to very big like wind parks. And this creates an interesting question because we can't, there's not even enough copper, which we could have. We can't just build all these cables following the old patterns, but we need to find a way to build the cables at the right place, at the right time in order to use most of the sustainable energy which is created. And if you imagine that this year alone in Germany and E.ON is actually connecting more than half of sustainable resources to the grid. We just connected the 1 million sustainable device to our grid. And this is
like a solar?
Like a solar, like wind, like...
Does that include EVs or not?
No.
EVs are also, could be an energy source too, of course, right.
Yes, but well, EVs can store energy.
Yeah, right.
So, but anyway, 1 million PV wind devices. So, and this is, let's say, it's going to double over the next years. It's really crazy what's happening. So we need to build this in a smart way. So we use digital twins. We use AI. So the one thing is building this grid in the right way. And the second thing, and this is about all of us and not about some companies, and I think this is a bigger learning. Actually, Europe and a lot of other continents have used energy as if it wouldn't cost anything. And we need to be much smarter on understanding energy as a consumer and as an industry, because it's a difference if I load my car if the sun is shining during noontime or if I load it in midnight when there's no wind. And we need to educate this, and this is actually the second thing where we are really engaged, and we call this democratizing energy, giving each consumer and each industry the chance not just to reduce the CO2 footprint, but actually managing the way they consume, store, and sell energy in a way which is best for the system to save energy.
And for them to be most affordable in their use also. I was just thinking, you know, Germany has an interesting history with energy because Germany's embrace of solar is really what led to today solar being so inexpensive, because more than any other big country, probably by far, you guys decided that solar was going to be important, and then a whole Chinese industry rose up to serve you, and now the world has cheap solar. So thank you. Of course, you were at Microsoft then, but that's still a legitimate connection. E.ON, I don't know if everybody knows, E.ON has 2 fundamental parts for their electrical business. You operate the grid, but not the long-distance grid, the grid that connects the long-distance grid to the users. And then you also have a business, a retail business for the users themselves. And that's, you have 48 million customers there. And you've also developed software for managing the grid, right? Which you've now turned into a business, because I heard from one of your colleagues that there are actually 900, even though you're by far the largest grid operator in Germany, right? There are actually 900 grid operators in Germany. So you're going to help them do a better job in the long run? Is that part of the idea there?
Yeah, actually, and not just in Germany. I think for us, what we learned when we look seriously into this energy transition and into the big complexity which is coming, we saw there are a lot of issues and challenges which are addressed by the software industry. Very easy. SAP, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, IBM, they're all doing this because there's a market. But there are a few big energy companies, and like us, we realized there are niches where nobody is actually finding a solution. We have one example which made this solution to a new business model, Octopus in UK.
Yeah, great company.
On a retail basis. And as E.ON, we said we actually need to look where there's no software, but where we think we make a big difference in having the right software.
Yeah.
And these are the places where we bought startups, where we built our own solutions, which we all put together under an umbrella, E.ON One, and we're actively selling these solutions. And the two biggest one is digital twins for grids, which we are selling in Europe and now expanding beyond Europe. And another one, which is actually growing like crazy, is we provide platforms for B2C and B2B to actively manage PV, EV charging, heat pumps, and find the best optimum for this asset.
Yeah.
And we put all these data together in order also to crowd manage that. So that's GridX, that's the second one. And we have a couple of more, and we are rapidly growing in the software business. Niche, wherever the really big players don't have solutions.
Maybe since AI is in the title of this session, let's just deal with that for a minute. You mentioned before that it's requiring you to think differently about the construction of the whole infrastructure. How much more energy does E.ON think your customers are going to end up having to use and you're going to have to deal with because of AI's growth, both from the data center standpoint and possibly even from the application standpoint?
I think probably Microsoft could answer this better than I can. What we see now is, like, if you look into Gen AI-driven data centers, in the moment, they use 10 times more energy than a usual data center. So then you could say, okay, that's going to be...
a usual data center.
Than a usual data center.
Well, data centers already use a lot of energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but we are in, if you look at this history of Gen AI being like industrialized via ChatGPT, etc., this is probably not something we can work with. So I would assume, and talking to the big providers, like if you talk to Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they all say one of their main topics, they all aim to be as sustainable. One of their main topics is to reduce the energy demand.
Right.
And again, to use software to avoid using too much energy. So I think that this extrapolation of what we know now, we are just at the beginning of this ChatGPT curve. Yes, it's consuming crazy amounts of energy, and you could say, I think in the moment, it's like, in the moment, data centers would consume something like a country of the size of Sweden.
I think it's like 5% of global energy use,
Yes.
by some estimates. Yeah.
So, and then you would say, hey, if it's 10 times more, that's crazy. But I think there's a lot of technology which is developed which will save energy as well.
Yeah.
And again, then using AI to allocate this to the right places. So if you have data centers around the world, then you can find out where do we have a lot of sun in this second, so the operations are done in this data center. So this is, again, about being smart. And I think that's also what we built the digital twins for our grid. And this is, in a way, what you also need to do to provide these data centers. You need to orchestrate each single millisecond where you do which operations, which energy is available, where don't you have energy, and so how do you, which concept is the right one to store energy. So from hydrogen to batteries, to cars, to homes, to temperature, whatever. And this is, and I think this is this daring to know discussion which will stay with us, I think, for the next few years. Because we can only be good at that if we have the right data and if we are allowed to process these data. Because you can only decide where do I need the energy in the next 5 minutes if I have historic data and if I see what's happening
right to the
around
end
me.
user.
Yes.
Yeah, that comes to the next thing I was going to ask you. You know, you Germans are so obsessed with privacy, right? It's sort of a national hobby to be worried about privacy, right? But I know that it does seem to apply here too. People are reluctant to let you know and to give the system information about their energy use. Is that true?
Well, I think first, the people don't seem to care that much because the people share anything on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So it's not it is regulation. And what we've seen now, and that's actually that's why I said it's going to stay with us. We have the European AI Act, which is especially focusing at seeing a lot of risks in critical infrastructures. And we think that in critical infrastructure, we need to process and operate based on data. And with the help of AI, we can't have people doing 100,000 of switches each second. We need to use Gen AI to do that. And this discussion, and that's actually daring to know is actually this. We need, as a society, we need to understand what we're doing there. It is not so dangerous. We have laws who are regulating
Do you think
that.
the citizens here in Germany understand that?
The question is, do you need to understand? Is that if you make a comparison, if you take Gen AI and compare it to a usual ladder, where you climb a tree, actually a ladder is really dangerous because if you misuse it, you can fall down. People are killed each year by ladders. It's really dangerous. And number two, it's supporting criminal intent because you can break in. So it's really dangerous.
A ladder? Yeah.
Yes, a ladder is really dangerous. It's more dangerous. I mean, you can prove this. People are killed. There are robberies. So
You don't want to walk under it either,
yes,
at least in the United States.
So, third point, thank you. So if you look, but we don't have a law which is regulating the use of ladders in the European Union.
No.
A ladder is a technology. Okay, it comes from a different century, but it is a technology. And probably people were scared about ladders a couple of thousand years ago. So now we go into Gen AI and say it's so dangerous that every citizen needs completely to understand each single point of AI because it's going to change everything. We need to have good laws. We need to protect the data. I absolutely agree. But it's no reason to be afraid. Actually, especially in the European Union, we have a lot of laws which are protecting privacy. We have a lot of laws which are protecting against criminal intent. We don't need to stop breathing because we could breathe something which is dangerous. And this is a big discussion for critical infrastructure because if you can't use Gen AI to operate based on data, then Europe is going to have a problem in terms of energy supply.
Okay, we unfortunately are pretty much out of time, but time has flown. What would you say maybe we haven't discussed yet that this audience really needs to understand to see how Germany and Europe and the world's energy grids are going to have to change?
I think we are changing. So what we see, and that's really cool, 2 years ago, the first asked question was, are we going to have a blackout? So now nobody asked, are we going to have a blackout? Because actually our systems are quite good. Our intelligence, the AI we use, is quite okay. And if I travel to other continents, the first question in the US, in the Middle East is, can you help us set up the grid in a way which is resilient? And I think this is something which Europe can bring to a lot of parts of the world.
So you've done a lot of resilience.
Yes.
Development, yeah.
And I think we can, actually that's something we can export, we can be proud of, and which will really help make the rest of the world also more sustainable.
Yeah.
So that's actually, I think it's good, it's step by step, but we are on a good way, and I'm super optimistic that the grid will support greenification in Europe in a good way.
Well, that's a good summary statement, and it's very impressive to see an electric utility becoming a software company. So congratulations on that, and thank you all very much.